We're gonna do an owl today, and I picked an owl out. Let me flip this around. I just found a photo of an owl, but I picked hang on, my stand here is, the legs are not standing tight. Hold on, video. I know I'm moving you around. Okay, hopefully that didn't disconnect it. Are we still good? I have such a humdinger of a time trying to get all the video and the lighting set up for you guys. So anyways, I think we're still on. My app shut off for a hot minute. So that kind of scared me. I'm gonna put this on the other side of my light ring so you guys can see me a little bit better. I need to get somebody professional that can set me up with a good setup on this. Okay, we're good. You can see my pad of paper, and that's what's good. Thank you, Belinda. Man, I panicked there because my whole app shut off when I was moving my camera around. So anyway, so I picked a barred owl, not a barn owl, a barred owl, a B-A-R-R-E-D, because when we moved, that's an owl that's native to where we live. When we moved out here 4 years ago, there was one night I was in bed sleeping, or I wasn't asleep, but we were using a front bedroom that wasn't the master bedroom to sleep in when we first moved in because we needed to do some painting and stuff, and I wanted to get the popcorn off the ceiling and all that fun stuff. So we were sleeping in this front bedroom that had a low window, and our bed was real close to it, and so every night I'd have the window wide open. It was like camping in your own bed. It was perfect. Anyways, there's this one night, and I hear this noise, and it sounded like monkeys in the trees. And I'm like, what the heck? And my husband, of course, sleeps through the whole thing. He doesn't hear anything. And so the next day, I knew it had to have been an owl or owls, a couple of them. And so the next day, I started Googling, researching what owls were local, and it was barred owls and the sounds that they make, and it's called catercalling, which I guess, I don't know if that's just mating or just, I don't know. But anyways, they do sound like monkeys when they get to going. But it's so fun to hear. But anyways, I love to hear the owls. Sometimes I hear them during the day. And he's the one that says, who cooks for you? And I always say, well, I'm the one that cooks for me. So anyways, so we're gonna do a barred owl. We're not gonna do the whole thing. I'm just gonna kind of do the head a little bit. So I have my watercolor mixing set, which is my favorite, most inexpensive way to paint. I love these colors because they're super bright and good pigment on them. And it's a mixing set, so I don't have red, I don't have green, I don't have dark blue. So anyways, it's just the basic mixing colors. You can also get replacements for them where you can replace just the ones you're missing. This is, normally they're all the same colors, but anyways, my orange is almost gone, my yellow is almost gone, so I had this handy. All right, Nat, you're driving me crazy. So those are the watercolors I use, and I have my water and a paper towel, and I have my size 4 round Wonder White brush from Beak, a Scholastic, which is school learning grade. Good brushes, I like those. I got a pencil, and if I need it, I don't know. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Terry. I know you love owls. I was thinking about you. I have 3 pens that you could draw with if you want to do a pen. And you don't have to do pen. You could just do pencil if you don't want to see the lines. I'm going to do a pen because I want you guys to see how I draw him. And so Sharpie's obviously going to be the thickest line. It's good for good bold lines and stuff, but I don't want to do a Sharpie for this. Great way for kids to learn to draw, even for you guys to learn to draw. If you want help with drawing, that way you're not relying on erasing all the time. It's just good practice, practice, practice to be okay with your mistakes and know you learn from those and you just keep doing more and more and more. The other one's a good one is a Faber-Castell. I'm not going to use that one either. I'm going to use this one that I got off of Amazon, Artistro paint marker pen. It's really fine. So, all right. I am basically just going to do the owl's face for this, and the owl, I need to show you a photo. I wish I could. I should have put, maybe I can add it in the comments later. Don't know if I can add. I'm looking at the comments. I don't think, hang on, I'm look here, see if I can add a picture that I'm looking. No, I can put a GIF or emoji or a sticker, and I don't want either of those. I might be able to do it after words, but anyways, it's just a beautiful owl. It's white and brown. Switches back and forth with the feathers, which we're not going to do all that kind of detail, but I'm going to just show you how I start out with my drawing here. So I look at his face first. That's usually, I start with maybe eyes, beak, the center, and then I move my way out. So I'm going to just start with the beak. The beak is very narrow. If my pen works here. Just narrow. Didn't need that extra little line in there. I'm looking straight on it. But pen and watercolor is just a beautiful form of art in itself. Okay, so I didn't put the very top of the nose. Now, I don't need a whole lot of details on this, but I'm going to get sketchy here. Not in like a sketchy way, but he's got like, there's a darker line that goes up between the eyes, and I'm, instead of just drawing a solid line, I'm using my pen to make somewhat like feather looks, and then the paint will color it in. So he's got these, it looks like big old eyebrows going on here. It'd be cool if we heard one while I was painting. Sometimes I do. I have yet to really get a good look at one in the daylight. I've seen like the silhouette of them at night, not much, but I would just love to see the barred owls that live around us. Okay, so he's got a big face here going on. This is where his eyes obviously are going to be, and I'm just kind of shaping the area where he has like a different type of feathers. And then the eyes, we think eyes around. If we were doing more of a cartoony, you know, type owl, they are, the eyes themselves are round, but he's got eyelids. So we could, if you started with a round circle, you could start with that, but he's got eyelids, and the trick is trying to get them the same size. But then I got eyelids that go over. So then it takes off the round look of the eyes. Looks like I put little eyelashes. These, you guys, this is a great one for kids, and they can totally make theirs more of a caricature instead of like actual real, but it's always good practice. Okay, so, and I smeared it, and his eyes could have been probably a little closer on this side. But I'm not going to get too worried about it. I'll scoot it over just by pulling in those feathers a little bit. All right. Yeah, that's kind of spooky with the white eyes. But anyway, so really quick, just give a shape to my head. He doesn't have the ears that stick up. They don't really have a neck. When I was looking for pictures of owls, I saw a video of two little baby owlets, and the mama was feeding them. They were so cute. They're white, and they got really fuzzy, furry hair that comes up on top. Super cute. All right. So there would be the body going down this way, just kind of the angle he's at. Now I could really take time to put the detail of these feathers, but I'm not. I'm just putting layers, almost like you would bricks, like squared off U's. They would be closer. They're more overlap than what I'm doing. That gives your idea that these feathers are wrapping around his neck, and they're kind of squared off on the ends a little bit. I'm probably making them a little bit more square than they need to be, but I'm getting the look of the layers here. And the way he's sitting, his body's kind of twisted. So like this is where you can see the wing on this side. So that's why it looks lower down here, because this is really the center of him. He's just got his head turned to the side. And I can put, let's see, these are a little different. Maybe a little less squared off, just to give. And I'm not gonna go all the way down. I'm just gonna let my watercolor just kind of trail off. And then around the face, the feathers wrap around. So a little less detail and a little closer together. It's the same feathers, but I'm just kind of putting more lines wrapping around rather than putting the actual feathers. I'll get a few more down under his beak here. And then it's just a lot of, and I'm breaking the lines up. Like I said, I'm not I'm not drawing it real solid. I'm real sketchy. Sketchy in a good way. Not a sketchy person, but I am a sketchy drawer. Okay, so then around his eyes, there's like rings of maybe really teeny feathers, I'm just guessing, with dark, like they're white, and then they got the brown tips, so they just kind of make a ring around his eyes more. Again, I'm keeping it pretty loose because I'm going to let my paints do more of what this is. We'll see. I've not watercolored an owl before, so we'll see how this turns out. All right, that's all I'm gonna draw on this. So let's do the paint. So we're gonna start with, I'm gonna start with the beak first, and with watercolor, you usually start with your lighter colors, and then you can add your darkers on top. Where in acrylic, you can put white on top of black if you wanted to. So you can't do that with watercolor. So I'm getting this, I just got my brush wet, and I'm gonna get this because I want it really dark. Because the beak is definitely darker. Now I don't want to get the middle of it maybe as much. Can you see? Let's see where I'm at here. I'll scoot this down. I don't need that. I just want to make sure you can see my paints. My picture's in the way, so I can't see what you guys are seeing. Okay, there we go. All right, I think you guys should be able to see my paints now. All right. Okay, so I don't want the beak like just all yellow right in the middle because he has a little bit of highlight to it. So all I did was rinsing my brush off, and then just with a wet brush, then I'm pulling that yellow in towards the center, so then it's not as dark. All right, so how in the world are we gonna do brown when we don't have brown? Well, first off, I don't want to start with brown, because if I start with brown, I won't have any lighter areas. And so and I don't usually use white, but this time I am. And my white's just a little dirty, but that's okay, because I don't want pure white. So I am going to get my white wet. There's some black in it, so it's going to kind of give a gray, which is totally fine. I'm going to get this really, really, really wet. Now I got too much, accidentally went right over top. I just wiped that. I had too much gray in it, so I wiped it off. Clean my brush here. So you can just wipe it out with your paper towel while it's wet. There we go. Now it's not so gray. But I'm getting my white really thick and wet. Now I already have some yellow on my lid right here, so I'm going to add that white into the yellow here. And it's also getting my white a little dirty, which is fine. That will be kind of where I want to start. And this yellow made it a little bit of a tan color. So I totally like this color. Okay, so I have my color ready. Now I want to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to come around with a wet brush. You're not gonna be able to see really well. And I just want to paint around his eye, and I'm just doing these eye circles, just getting that wet. Because now I'm going to take this color that I mixed, and I'm just dropping it in. I'm not really trying to paint any certain areas, just kind of all around with this. It's kind of a putty color, kind of a grayish tan. Because remember, I had a little bit of black in my brush, or in that white already. Okay, so now I'm going to come do the other side, get it wet all around the eye. If I get the eye wet on this, it's not going to matter. I just got to make sure when I do the eyes, because they'll be really dark, that I don't let the eyes bleed out. So this will have to be dry. I don't want the color, the dark color, to bleed out onto his face. If I do, it will be controlled where I want it. So again, I'm getting all this putty color going on around his face. Hey Deanna, thank you. All right, now I'm gonna just go ahead and get, because I want all this, because of the way his markings are, he's very variegated between a super light, this light tan color, and then a pretty golden brown. So I want to make sure that I just get a good underlayment of all this tan color. So I'm not really worrying about where it's getting. I'm just doing it over top of all of my drawn area and a little bit below it. And I'm gonna mix a bunch of this white here. There's the black in it again. Put just a little yellow in it. Just a little. Don't want too much. Like I said, I don't usually watercolor with white very often at all, but we need it for this. Sometimes you can, if you're doing white, you would just not paint it where you wanted the white. You can use a masking fluid, which is probably similar to rubber cement, and you would paint it on. That's what they do in watercolor, is if you got certain places that you didn't want any color, you would use the masking fluid and you would paint it on. And then you would, then you paint your painting, you paint it on where you don't want any paint. Same idea as like if you did a crayon or resist. And then when they were all done with the painting, everything's dry, then you peel it off and it leaves your spots. All right, so we got our nice tan owl here. I'm gonna just bring a little bit more water down here. I'm using a watercolor paper. It's 140-pound weight, which is a good weight for doing wet on wet, because it dries well. If you were doing a painting that you're wanting to frame, you might want to tape all the sides down on a surface to keep it flat. Plus, when it's dry, you can flatten it. All right, there is our owl. Now we're going to make a golden color to, and I'm just going to use this tray right here with this yellow, and I'm just going to mix it in that because it's almost gone. So, what makes brown? Lots of things make brown. When I teach the kids in my painting classes, and when we paint acrylic, we use red, yellow, blue, black, and white. The kids, especially the younger ones, love to just mix all their colors together on their plate, and of course they get a brown. And it's all sorts of shades of brown. So we want a golden brown. So golden gives you the hint that there's going to be yellow in it. So I'm showing you on the lid too, so you can see it a little bit better. All right, but we want it darker. Now I could take some of my black, but if you remember right, black and yellow make green. So there it's a little bit more green. So maybe I don't want it that green. But you know what, before I change that, I kind of like that. I'm gonna use some of this up around his face. And this is still wet, and I'm just kind of going over top of some of these rings around his face, around his eyes that I had, just to give that look. I'm not really defining any feathers, but I'm just kind of making those rings with this drab, kind of a drab green color. This is a lot of wet on wet. If I want more detail, this is going to spread out, but if I wanted it to be a finer line, which you could do that like final touches, you want your paper to be dry for that. So I'm just kind of adding some little spots, and like I said, it's going to kind of spread out. It's not going to look real detailed when it dries. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and use that. So I am going to go ahead and use some of this. So on my feathers, I'm just setting this color down inside each of these little indentations at the tips of all these feathers. I'm not making the ends really clean. We're still going to make another shade of brown that's going to be darker and more golden. But I want to get a little bit of this detail. Definitely don't want to just do two colors with our painting. We want to have a little bit more. And at the top of his head there's more, definitely it's a darker brown. But I'm just going to kind of add this in. I smeared my pen over here. I am not a watercolor artist. I just love doing it, so that's just the way I do it. There's so many ways, and I'm sure that I'm breaking every rule that there probably is when it comes to watercolor. Whoops, how did I get a different color already? I didn't even mean to. But anyways, I guess I'm not afraid of playing around with something and seeing how it looks. All right, so I kind of went all over the pen marks with this greenish color. Now I'm going to go for another brown color here. So I'm going to take some orange in this. Just a little bit of my orange. I didn't take much. I didn't really get it wet. I'm going to actually, let me mix it in this here, because that way I can make more of it. Okay, so this is more of a golden yellow. Can you see that? It's like an orangey color, but I want to put some of this black in here, because I don't want it like a bright orange. I think I need a little bit more black. Just a little darker. How about, I'm going to try a little purple in it. Let's try that. And the reason I would pick purple is because on a color wheel, purple is on the opposite, and that's exactly what I want, is on the opposite side of yellow. And opposing colors are colors on the opposite side. I put a little bit more orange in it. Make brown. Sorry, I lose my train of thought in the middle of talking. A little bit more orange in there. I want it a little bit on the yellowy, orangey, reddish brown side. Just a little bit. All right, I like that. I think that looks a lot like what I'm looking at. All right, so I'm going to just, let's see. Let me try this first. I'm setting some water spots. So I definitely want this color to be right on the very tips of my feathers. So I'll still see it's not necessarily covering up all of that other color. It's drying pretty quick here. Just kind of going on the underneath, the bottom part of each of those feathers, the very edges of them, and adding this more of a golden brown color. And I'm just kind of putting it in between some of these places. Because remember, I know you're not seeing the reference of this owl like I am, but he's got a lot of white in him too. So I don't want to lose all my white. Hey! Sorry about that. That scared me. Somebody's here. Probably delivery. Okay, so now I want a definite dark brown here up at the top. So I'm gonna take more, I'm using this purple. There we go. See how that turned really brown right as soon as I put that purple in there? Okay, I definitely want this more of a concentrated color here. And if it gets too watery, then it's not gonna be and it's pretty watery. So anyways, I got it too watery. Gotta be careful. There we go. Let's do this darker brown. All right. So now definitely up the middle of his nose. And watercolor always dries lighter then. And he's got a lot of brown underneath his beak. Just being careful if your beak is wet that color doesn't bleed onto the other stuff. It's gonna make it when we do the eyes for sure. So I just did purple and I didn't mix it as much, and so it may look, if you really knew it was purple, then you'd think, oh, that's purple. But it's not gonna look purple because your mind is telling you that it's brown. But it's got a purple tint to it. But when you want something really dark, you can use those colors. You just got to tell your mind it's the color you want it to be. It's just like when you look, especially like right now while you're driving around and the fields are turning all the different colors. The fields are purple. Some of them, I don't remember, I can't think what particular kind of stuff would be growing, but look for purple in the fields. Even though if you got up close to it, your mind tells you this is brown or this is whatever, you know. So I'm adding in these darker lines mixed in with the lighter colors. I didn't get detail down here, but I'm gonna put a little darker just kind of under the edge of the feathers. That gives a little depth. Just kind of a shadow. This is kind of the bottom edge of those little shapes I made and in between, so it just kind of adds depth to it, gives it the dark underneath. It's still highlighting the lighter shades. This is just shadows. All right. Now I'm not painting any detail down here, but I'm gonna add some just kind of some stripes of colors because his feathers are kind of just looking at the way the feathers come down. Just the layers of color, the way the colors are, and I'm just taking some of my color and just dropping it in there and letting it do its thing. That's how you can just leave it loosely painted. And I just love to see how these paints just kind of do their own little thing here. All right, now for the eyes. So the eyes are really dark, but we want a white spot that shows the light. Thank you, Carrie. I'm painting a barred owl, Carrie, like what we have around. Just love them. All right, so I'm gonna do a yellow and, or no, a black and, can't even talk, black and purple first for my eyes. So it's not just solid. And I wanna be careful, this is where like a masking fluid would come in really handy, but I don't have that, so I'm just gonna make sure that I just leave a little unpainted spot towards the top. Don't do it right in the middle because that really makes them look kind of crazy. Try not to put my hand on top of my wet paint. But anyways, so I did purple, like a dark purple with my black for my eyes. Now, I'm gonna do eyeliner with just black, not hardly any, I need to clean my brush, but I don't want a really wet brush. I want it fairly dry, so I'm trying to get a good tip on this. So just a little eyeliner to add to your eyelids around. You can bring them, you know, that sketchy way that we drew him. So you can use your paintbrush to do, sorry, I'm gonna keep getting my hand right in that wet paint. I'm gonna have to turn them. It's harder because it's not the angle that you need to look at sometimes when you turn your, I shouldn't have done that because now I can't tell which way I wanted to go. Because if you remember, that eye was too far out and I was trying to push it back over. All right, so now I can go ahead and add some darker black onto this dark purple. Not all of it, just kind of maybe towards the bottom outside edges. And then I feel like I want to do something a little bit different around his beak, just to get it. I'm going to make the black purple around his beak. I don't want it real heavy though. Hopefully that yellow got dry. I'm just trying to make it less drawn and more I don't know. All right. This is, I think, oh, he's got little nostril notches right here. So yeah, there it is. There's my little barred owl. His top of his head's a little wonky. It's funny how you look at it straight and you look at it at an angle. he's got kind of a wonky shaped head on the top. Let me see here. Let's see if I can just kind of, it's because I'm looking at it from such a deep angle, I have a hard time seeing my shape being what it should. That looks much better. So yeah, if I wanted to put any other colors in, I could drop them in. If you want them to just kind of blend in, like the wet on wet, you can just go where, you know, you can add more water before it gets really dry, but anyways, I thought an owl would be fun. It's so fallish outside right now. It's a little warm, but owls and bonfires and hot chocolate and s'mores. It's that kind of weather here. Just adding a little bit more of this golden. I gotta remember that he's got all the white in him too. He's definitely got more color than he has in real, but so I don't want to over paint him. So anyways, so there's our owl for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that.